Hi, everyone. Welcome to Your Money Map, sponsored by Limra's Alliance for Lifetime Income. I'm your host, Jean Chatsky. I'm very glad that you're with us today. We all want to help the people that we love, whether that means supporting adult children who are still finding their footing, or providing care for older parents, or stepping up for other relatives in need. But when does that help cross the line, that generosity cross the line into self-sabotage? A new study from the Alliance for Lifetime Income reveals just how many Americans are putting their own retirements and even their physical health at risk to support the people that they love. More than half of those people offering financial help say it's cutting into their savings, yet very few are willing to pull back. Joining me today to unpack those findings are two of the world's leading experts on aging and longevity. You've met them both before, but let me give them a proper introduction. Dr. Ken Dychtwald is co-founder and CEO of AgeWave. Maddy Dychtwald is co-founder and co-founder of AgeWave and author of the new book, Ageless Aging, which just dropped in paperback. It's a brand new edition with a brand new chapter. Ken and Maddy are award-winning leaders in the longevity space. Together, they have spent decades studying how long lifespans, changing family dynamics, and shifting cultural norms are reshaping exactly what it means to age and to thrive in today's world. And I am thrilled to have them with us to talk about how we can safeguard our own futures while supporting the people who matter most. Ken and Maddy, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to see you again, Jean. Always good to see you.
Always great to see you, and thanks for having us.
Of course. So the Alliance recently released the latest chapter of its annual PRIP study. PRIP stands for Protected Retirement Income and Planning. And this chapter of the study highlights how many Americans are risking their own financial security and their health to support family members. And let me just hit you with some statistics. I'll ask for your reactions on the other side. So 17% of our respondents report supporting adult children. And we qualify those as people over the age of 26. 10% support grandchildren, 7% support parents or in-laws, an additional 9% support other relatives. And more than half of these folks tell us it's impacting their own ability to save for retirement or their own already built up retirement savings. Ken, let me start with you. It seems like there are a lot of people who are hesitant to put themselves first. Why do you think that is?
You use the word generosity, and that's what we've seen too. That there's sort of this generational generosity that parents don't want to turn their back on their children or their brother or their sister or their parents, even if it means putting themselves at risk. And that risk could ultimately cause them to have to be reliant on the very same people that they were helping out. So I don't view it as being driven by any kind of ill intentions, but rather the opposite. We see that people say that they don't ever want to be a burden on their family, but they don't ever want to turn their back on their loved ones.
Maddy, the two of you are parents, so I am sure you know how hard it is to say no to your children. The same is really true for any loved one. I actually think it's even harder to say no to our older parents than it is to say no to our children. How do we square our needs with their needs? How do we put it in some sort of perspective?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Jean, because each and every one of us are very hardwired to help those people that we love, whether it be our children, grandchildren, or parents. And I know Ken and I have had to support both of our adult children at different points, as well as our parents when they were not doing well. So I think there's a few things we can do. One is to reframe the question. When people let's say our children, I'll just use my daughter as an example. Let's say she was asking for help on her rent. Rather than just saying no, we can turn that no into a yes, but. And the yes, but is what, well, yes, I'm happy to help you, but not with the money per se. Instead, let's brainstorm some ideas, some ways that you can yourself both budget better and figure out ways to pay the rent yourself. So that's one thing. And, setting good boundaries there is really an important step. Hard, but important. Second, I would say be very open. Tell them that you expect to live a long life and that you probably will along the way have some health concerns that you are not expecting, that you need to plan for financially. And you do not want to end up having to ask them for help 10, 15, 20 years down the line. And when you put it into that context, I think it really hits home.
If you are watching us on Facebook or LinkedIn and you've got a question about caregiving, supporting older parents, supporting younger kids for Ken or Maddie, just feel free to drop it into the comments. I'll be happy to weave it into the conversation. Ken, I'm wondering, are there times when the no should be a financial yes? We read these headlines about younger generations struggling. I think about this in my own life, and I have 2 children, both, one is in his 30s, my daughter is almost 30. By the time I die, I really hope that they don't need my money. I think they probably use a little bit of it while I'm still alive, but juggling that line between giving now and not having enough for yourself later is a very hard one to maneuver. How do you think about it?
Well, I'm a science fiction sort of maniac, so I partly think of this in science fictional terms, that there's Maddie and me today, and then there's Maddie and me 10, 20 years from now. Now we're both 75. I know she looks like she's 35, but
He's just being
we're
kind.
both
No,
75.
he's really not. You do look about 35.
Right. So we have to think about not
Thank you.
only how do we support ourselves today, but we have to take our resources and make sure that 15 or 20 years from now, we're not looking back and saying, you knucklehead, why didn't you give some thought to me at this stage in our lives? So we are fortunate to have a financial advisor. We have a financial advisor and we've talked it through. And then we explained to our kids that we can help them out a bit. We did pay for their college, which some of their friends did not. Now they're paying down college debt till the end of time. But we've had to explain to them that we are concerned not only for living this month, but we've got a future in mind. And we don't want that future to be one in which we're struggling, or Maddie is frightened if she outlives me, or there has to be some struggle. And ultimately, we'll fall back on them to have to give up some portion of their current life to support us. So seeing things in the long-term framework is absolutely critical. We tend not to do that very much in America. We tend to think of the next paycheck or this year versus thinking science fictionally of the decades in front of us.
I have a Time magazine cover that I clipped and saved about a decade ago. It has a picture of a baby on it, and the headline is that the baby could live to be 142 years old, which scares the pants off me.
I have
But
the same cover, by the way.
it's a reminder. It's a reminder. Another major finding in our survey, and it's to your point, Ken, about financial advisors, is that only 28% of people have discussed the support that they provide to family members with a financial professional. Do you think that people are intentionally not having these conversations if they have a financial professional, or is the financial professional hesitant to raise them? Why are these conversations going untended?
Oh my. Well, I think from where I sit and having been in the field of aging now for 51 years and having worked with many of the great financial firms, I think that there's three problems that have got to be addressed. One of them is that only about a third of the US population has a financial advisor. And they tend to be the higher net worth folks. And so the majority of the population doesn't even have someone they can talk to or get, kind of sage counsel. That's a bad thing in a world where there's so much uncertainty and so much unpredictability and a lot of years in front of people. I know when my grandparents reached their 60s, they pretty well thought that they had reached their expiration date. Maddie and I think in terms of another 10, 20, or even more years in our lives. So having a financial advisor who can help the average person, essential. Second, the financial community has largely been oriented towards helping people save for retirement day versus how to spend and decumulate once you're no longer working. Now, the insurance industry has, in the last 5 years, really begun to step into this territory by offering annuities and checks for life and things like that. But the financial advisory world got to kind of snap out of it and realize that it's not just about saving for retirement, it's living for years or decades after that. And the third problem is that the financial advisory community has never really been trained to deal with women. Which Maddie will get to in a second, about how they have different lives, and also doesn't really deal with families. Tends to focus on money. How are we doing today in the market versus
What's the number?
What's the number versus, for example, and on my family, two things. I help support my brother who's 3 years older than me. So that's not a parent or a child, it's a sibling. And the boomers averaged 4 kids per household when they were born. So there's a lot of people dealing with their brothers or sisters or their families. Also, my dad, who was a hardworking sort of lower middle class and then got himself to middle class guy, had diabetes and thought he'd live maybe 60, 65 years. Now, my dad lived till he was 93.
Wow.
But he outlived his money. And that never occurred to him. So we had to have some really difficult discussions. And we wound up supporting my parents for the last decades of their life. But my dad was not happy about that. He was ashamed of himself. And these are all things that could have been handled by a financial advisor guiding a family discussion.
Yeah.
It seems like you are suggesting, and Maddy, maybe you can talk to this a bit, that financial advisors plug into the space between finance and family and also health. Rising healthcare costs are a major source of retirement anxiety. 67% of our survey respondents said that inflation is a top concern, but a close second, 60%, said that they are worried about healthcare expenses. They're worried about a major health event. They're worried about being dependent on others. They're worried about cognitive decline. These are all bigger issues, I think, for women because we outlive our spouses and we'll take care of them, but who's going to take care of us? How do you what sort of guidance do you have for the people who are lying awake at night worrying about this?
Well, this is something that's kind of a good wake-up call because women during retirement spend about $200,000 on average. Now that's during retirement on healthcare expenses. That's a big number.
Out of pocket?
Out of pocket, yes. Over and above Medicare, and if you have a Medicare sup policy, it's over and above that, and that's scary. Also, you alluded to the fact that we women, we've won the longevity lottery. I mean, we live about 5 to 6 years on average, longer than men, but when it comes to our health span and our brain span, we're not doing as well as men. We spend the last, on average, 12 to 14 years in a cascade of poor health. Things like arthritis and diabetes and even cognitive decline and Alzheimer's disease, which is pretty scary stuff. So we need to recognize that we can do something about this. We can take charge or be the CEOs of our own health and well-being. And according to the most recent science that's out there, up to 85% of our health and longevity have to do with lifestyle and environment, which means that our health, it's not just a matter of fate, it's a matter of the choices we make and the science that we have access to. So what does that mean? That means be sure to get your annual exam. Be proactive in terms of your own health. Make a list before you go to the doctor's office. These are practical things. Then, in terms of taking charge of your lifestyle, get rid of all the bad things in your pantry, the ultra processed foods, the seed oils. I mean, we've all heard about this. We know, get rid of the bad and eat the rainbow. And when I say eat the rainbow, I don't mean any kind of cereal that's colorful. I mean, we need to eat fresh fruits, veggies, whole grains. We want to exercise. I mean, exercise, if there was a silver bullet, exercise is the silver bullet. I mean, we know that strength training is a huge, huge deal. And I think we've all seen it in the media now. So we know, get some strength training into your life. In fact, doctors are now saying that strength training should be a new vital sign, similar to our blood pressure or our heart rate. That's how important it is. There's sleep, there's social connections, having a sense of purpose. These things are all working together to help us live better longer. But there's one element that we can't forget, and that is wealth. I mean, the kind of financial well being. And when I say wealth, I don't mean being rich. I mean, feeling a sense of financial peace of mind, feeling a sense of security around our financial well being. It can really help improve our health. I mean, lower our cortisol levels, help us sleep better at night, make some of the right choices in life. So, yeah, I think that that's the secret sauce.
Maddy,
let
when
me,
we talk about, wait, let me
Gina, I
follow up
just
on
have to,
one point that
sure.
Maddy made, and then I'll let you jump in, because when you talk about um, feeling that peace of mind about your finances, to me, that is directly tied to the amount of control that you have over
That's
your
right.
finances. It's not necessarily tied to the number in your bank account, but I think that's where having a paycheck for life, an annuity, it's some form of protected income to supplement Social Security, becomes so valuable because it can last as long as you live. Could you just speak to the idea of control, and then can